Okay, hello. Hello. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Christine, and also Daniela, for your insights so far. Definitely very interesting. And I would like to quickly come back to Christine for a second, what you were explaining about the DMA, because this was something very interesting on your slide when you said, okay, 30% less clicks and 36% less bookings, which I'm like, wow, that's a lot. And if I would be now obviously in a hotelier's shoes, that would be very concerning to me. So I don't know if you could shed a bit more insight on that and how you think that impacts individual businesses, chains, and where that sort of goes on from here.
Yeah, I mean, we are still in the early stages, right? We don't know how Google will also maybe change their search results even further. So I think maybe going back to the roots, going back to SEO and really figuring out what is my content and what content do I have on my website? What content do the OTAs have on their websites? Am I giving them information that I'm not even sharing on my website? Looking at the search trends, what are actually people looking for, and going more in that direction. And always, of course, looking at other distribution channels and making sure that you're spreading your distribution across a wider range, as well as your marketing, right? To really make sure to, be there when the trends pick up, maybe. Being on ChatGPT and figuring out how everything works. I think that's important, staying up with trends and just seeing how everything evolves, basically.
Right. So you think as well you need to do a lot more data analysis and maybe data mining and sort of look into your different data silos, I suppose, and where the business collects data from, and
for sure,
kind of collect it from there.
Yeah, and Daniela was talking about CRM and using the data that you have about the guest. I mean, that really tells you what you need to, write on your website and what you need to promote, what you need to put your emphasis on, and I think that's crucial.
Yeah, I think with regards to the DMA, it's going to be very interesting what's going to happen in the next few years. It's a drastic decrease. I was a little bit shocked of your numbers as well. 36% is really a lot. If I'm just talking about Ruby Hotels, I don't see the decrease that drastically, luckily enough. Yeah. We still increase our impressions, which is quite good, but yes, the conversion rate is less than it used to be. However, if we're talking about meta searcher, Google Hotel Ads also just happened a few years ago, I would say, and took most of the share from meta searchers like TripAdvisor or Trivago, and it shifted to Google Hotel Ads. Now it's shifting somewhere else, I think. Google has also introduced then the beta of the PMax travel campaign, which is then again performing quite well. So I think coming back to that data, we just need to be agile and flexible to make sure that we adapt to the changes in the market.
Yep, definitely. I think so too. Laszlo, you want to add something there from your side, or should I?
No. Wow, a lot of insight. And I wanted to jump a little bit to Ruby Hotels and ask some further questions, because I know that you have quite a homogeneous technology stack at your company. You obviously have only one brand, where many of the companies sitting here have several or many, or sometimes I think too many brands. And I wonder, how much autonomy are you still giving to your hotel managers? Because I mean, you take away the distribution, you take away the pricing, sounds to me, you take away the interior design, the hiring. So as a hotel manager, if I would come to you, what is my job? What do you let him do?
Very good point. I didn't even elaborate on that just before, but we are super centralized. So basically any expert department is centralized in our corporate office and is not in the hotel department itself. So not even the front office department, but also finance, accounting, hiring, even event management, which should be something perhaps you would think would be something local is done centrally. And with that, we both just many different synergies taking the central approach. But back to your question, what is the job of our hotel manager? It's not the same job as a general manager of the Hilton. I'll assure you, it's very differently. Our hotel manager is really there for the guest at that moment to make sure he's happy. He has a great barista coffee, he has a good breakfast, he has a nice cocktail, a clean room. That is his responsibility, guest satisfaction.
Okay, well, that sounds like back to the roots. On the other hand, you cross-train probably a lot of your staff members, and many of them might be coming from completely different fields. And how are you catching up with their training situation, not only on the hotel side, but also in your headquarters, where I guess the IT and hotel know-how needs to go hand in hand in order to provide this exclusive, slimmed-down product that seems to hit the zeitgeist of today, where people don't want to pay. Even though I was a little shocked when I looked at your prices at your Geneva hotel.
Yes, Geneva is another market, but did you compare them to the 4- or 5-star hotels there? The prices in Geneva are quite high, yes.
Congratulations, I mean, bravo. It's one thing to announce them, it's another thing to obtain them. I'm sure that you get the prices. But that shows also that people don't want to have an overloaded way of greeting and meeting and saying goodbye to them, as you mentioned, several steps to go through a check-in, check-out, and that you streamlined it right from the beginning, and that you have the advantage of being small and doing it once at all. But coming back to the training question, so how do you train your people on premises and in the headquarters?
Yeah. So I think the first step is in the recruitment process. That's very important to us. As you just mentioned, our teams, especially our hotel teams, are not typically hoteliers with a hotelier background, but they often come from other branches as well. That's totally fine for us because we're not looking for the perfect CV, but we're looking for the perfect personality. And it's this personality that really creates the guest experience for us. With regards to training, we've got an extensive onboarding program called Ruby Core, with our own Ruby trainings, both in the corporate office as well as in the hotels itself, and also several programs where everyone nowadays, especially younger generations, want to become a manager, right, when they come out of school, basically, but where we offer different steps as well to progress and develop themselves.
And is this ongoing? Is this ongoing, or is it a one?
Yeah, so every team member has trainings at least, and it depends a little bit on the topic, of course, or on the job itself, but has trainings at least twice a year from our Ruby Core portfolio. And then there's a lot of training on the job as well for the hotel team, or there's more specific trainings than for the functions in the corporate office.
Because as you just mentioned, you talked about the full cost of implementing a software. So when it comes to full cost, sometimes I believe people forget about the training. And true. I really see, and I'm very applauding IHTTI's initiative in order to dive into this topic, because there is a real lack. We see people being trained. Yep. On the ground level, where they don't have to pay for their education, because in general parents, or very seldom the students themselves, pay for it. True. But then when it comes to further education, we see not that there is no offer, but the offer is not really considered and consumed. So how do you see this part of the educational part of implementing new softwares into bigger chains? Because it's one thing to trying to implement them, but many or sometimes they fail because people were or are not trained enough.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's a crucial thing, and we as H2C, we support hotel chains when they go through such implementations, and we always make sure that the training plans are laid out. But as you mentioned, it's not only when you first change the system where it's important to train the people, but also making sure that there is regular webinars, or when there's new features being released by tech products that the hotel chains are using, they need to be kept aware and change their setup maybe as well in their systems in order to go with the trends and being able to utilize the functionalities that are available in the systems, and making sure that when staff changes, the handover is correct, and that you are getting all the data and necessary information from the systems that you use. Yeah.
This is becoming very interesting with AI as well, actually. Mm-hmm. There's quite a few smaller startups now that involve training platforms based on AI, where you just get a few questions into the tool, and you get an entire automated training, really focused on the needs. So that's really cool and changing, I think, the needs or also the demand.
Okay, yes, well, I'm looking at those training platforms like Cypher, which is the leading training platform provider. But then nevertheless, this doesn't, I mean, those training tools, those large language models, they are not, according to my experience, specific enough when it comes to detailed training, as you mentioned, of how to utilize a new feature in a specific software. They'll give you a nice overview of how
but
the
I
general
think
looks like. Yeah,
we're getting there, though. We're getting there. Yeah, I think the technologies companies are really figuring out which language models to use and really using the data that they have in their systems and training the language models on the data that they have to make it more relevant and not just to get a broad overview of what the system can do. And I think we're going to see a lot of cool changes happening there, and that should make training a lot easier.
So do you think that, okay, now that the tech skills and tech savviness, obviously as a customer, guest, and also as a staff member, as you mentioned, is one part of it, that you're comfortable using it, you understand how it works. But do you think there's other key skills that, as looking from Laszlo's point of view, we should be equipping future hoteliers with to be like, okay, when you leave from here, apart from academia, this is something that you should have, or this is something you need to develop further and explore in order to either fit into Ruby Hotels or more into your area of the industry?
Yeah, I think it's just be curious and really try to understand the processes that are happening in the hotels, and then thinking of, are there ways to change it? Can we actually automate it? Because I think the younger generation, I mean, they are completely tech savvy, or most of them, and robotic process automation, figuring out if there's other ways to do it, functionalities into systems that are not yet used but could be used to automate something. I think that's a crucial thing to have to stay curious, to figure out improvement areas, and not be afraid to bring something like that up, because I think more and more hotel chains are recognizing, or hotels are recognizing, that they need to change their processes, and the technology is evolving so fast that the processes sometimes are lagging behind and they need to catch up.
Okay, well, you know, we had so many SOPs around, and there still are. So, I mean, you now give me this in a large language model, and but still nobody's going to use it. So how are you going to solve this problem?
Yeah, very true. But I think that, I mean, there's more interconnected services and products out there where hotel staff members can communicate with each other, where it's easier to access the SOPs. And maybe in the future, we'll also see that the employee can just ask their hotel chain app or their own hotel app, what's my SOP for a priority guest that's coming in the next minute, and then they'll get directly the response that they need without having to search through the SOPs and so on. So yeah, I think there's products that will solve that need.
If I'm coming back to your question just before, what should you teach at a hotel school? I always very much like to hire from specific hotel schools where I know that they put a lot of focus on soft skills. Systems are always, it's a great advantage if people know systems, but if someone just graduated says, I know system A, B, C, D, I still don't believe that they've really worked with it, because learning it in school is totally different than actually learning on the job and actually having that experience. So that's for one thing, but these soft skills, like how to have a conversation with someone in a positive manner, even though it's a sensitive subject, or how do you cooperate with your colleagues, or how do you behave in job interview, or things like that. I think that are soft skills. They are not learned by the book, and that takes a lot of practice, and that is really a big advantage from some educations that put a lot of focus on that. If they come out of school and you just know that they've done a lot of, even though it sounds silly maybe, but done a lot of role playing, done a lot of practice in that sense as well.
Yeah, I think knowing one thing is, like learning something in a classroom, like you said, or learning something by the book is one thing, but then how do I actually apply it? And I don't have to be the strongest person in academia to be a very great hotelier. I must balance different areas. Soft skills obviously is very key, and I need to be able to apply all these things. But for them to understand, okay, where this is all coming from, how the distribution landscape has been developed from online to offline, and the different systems that we use, and how they're all connected or not connected, that is, I think, very much important. How do I reach guests through certain channels? And like you said before, we are focusing more on social media and digital marketing and getting the customer through that way. It's something that if you haven't really experienced it yet, or if you haven't really gone and done an internship or are doing something in a hotel at the moment, it's very difficult for them sometimes to grasp, of course. And we all started there at some point, so I think it's more important for them to be like, okay, how do I get that knowledge, or how do I make that happen? So yes, training or online platforms could be a thing, but then doesn't really help me a lot if I don't really actually have maybe access to the commercial manager, and we can have a chat about something, I can ask something and understand the bigger picture of things. So definitely.
Yeah, where I wanted to come to is that, I mean, the material to train is nice, but we also as an industry definitely, I believe, maybe I'm wrong, have to dedicate time and resources and money so that it can happen. Your vision comes alive, and I mean, the technical part of it is nice to have, but then you also have to, you know, bring it one step further to the trainee and help him to jump and dive into the topic.
Also, they're lacking sometimes the understanding then, in a sense, like the application. So like, why would one system work better than another? And when would I make the choice to do it one way or another? So if we have a very unique concept like yours, why certain channels, of course, will not work whatsoever, et cetera, et cetera. And just because one thing doesn't work for me, or it works for me, but not for my competitor, that sort of understanding, of course, is very, very crucial, I think.
Yeah, and I think that understanding is only done on the job itself, really by practice and by a lot of feedback, which is, I think, important, next to training as well, to just receive feedback on how are you doing, and to know the reason why are we doing certain things, and maybe also question them. Maybe the why today is not the same why as tomorrow. Maybe what we're doing today is not the right thing that we should be doing tomorrow.
We're definitely all on the journey. I mean, the one size fit for all is definitely over. According to statistics, it takes 10,000 hours in order to master a topic. Ladies and gentlemen, I did not master mine as yet, so I'm still in the journey, and please join us. Looking forward to seeing you again.
Yeah, no, true. So thank you very much for sharing the insight. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.